Part 1: The beginning of my double life. I never thought I'd be the kind of man who would sit down one day and confess to the world that I ruined the best thing in my life with my own selfishness. But here I am, typing these words in the silence of a one-bedroom apartment that feels more like a prison cell than a home. If you were to look at me from the outside 10 years ago, you'd think I was one of the lucky ones. A man who had everything: a stable job, a wife who loved me, 2 kids who thought I hung the moon, a house in the suburbs with a backyard where we grilled hot dogs in the summer and shoveled snow together in the winter. I wasn't rich, but I was comfortable. I wasn't famous, but in my circle, people respected me. I had, by all conventional standards, made it. And yet, I destroyed it all. 5 years. That's how long my secret lasted. That's how long I lived 2 lives. One with my wife and kids, the other with a woman who wasn't my wife. 5 years of lying, sneaking, covering my tracks, and telling myself stories to justify it all. And now, looking back, I wish I could grab that younger version of myself by the collar, shake him, scream in his face, "You fool! You idiot! Don't you see what you're about to throw away?" But of course, hindsight is a cruel teacher. It only arrives when the damage is already done. The justifications I told myself. If you asked me back then why I cheated, I would have given you answers that sounded logical, almost sympathetic. I would have told you that I was bored, that my marriage had become routine, that my wife was too busy with the kids, that the spark was gone. I would have said I felt unappreciated, invisible even, that after years of working hard to provide, no one seemed to notice me anymore. I would have said, I deserved a little happiness too. Do you hear how pathetic that sounds? Those weren't real reasons. They were excuses I built brick by brick to hide the real truth. I was weak. I wanted validation, attention, excitement. And instead of doing the hard work of talking to my wife, of confronting my own insecurities, I took the easy road. I let someone else's admiration fill the gaps in my ego. At the time, it felt like freedom. In reality, it was a slow poison. How it started. Her name doesn't matter. Let's call her Emily. She was a colleague, smart, funny, the kind of woman who could light up a dull office meeting just by making a sarcastic comment under her breath. We didn't start off flirting. We were just co-workers, chatting over coffee breaks, complaining about deadlines. But those small conversations grew. She started asking about my family, about my wife, about the kids. She'd tilt her head and smile in this way that made me feel like I was the most interesting man in the room, even when I was just rambling about office software. One night, after a late meeting, we ended up at a bar with a few colleagues. Everyone else left early, but she and I stayed. I remember the way she laughed at something I said, really laughed, like she couldn't help it. My chest swelled with a kind of pride I hadn't felt in years. That night, nothing physical happened. We just talked, shared stories, lingered too long over drinks. But when I drove home, my hands on the steering wheel, I couldn't stop replaying her laughter in my head. The next day at work, she smiled at me in a way that told me she was thinking about it too. That was the beginning. The first lie. Started small. "Hey honey, I'll be home late tonight. Big project deadline." That was the first lie I ever told my wife about Emily. I can still remember the sting of it, the tiny knot in my stomach as the words left my mouth. But she didn't question it. Why would she? I'd never given her a reason not to trust me before. That night, Emily and I had dinner. Nothing extravagant, just a quiet little restaurant a few blocks from the office. But the way she looked at me across the table, the way she leaned in when she spoke, the way her foot brushed against mine under the table, it was intoxicating. By the time I walked her to her car, I already knew. I knew where this was heading. And a part of me, the part that should have screamed, "Go home, fool, don't do this," was silent. The rush of the forbidden. The first kiss happened 2 weeks later. We were in her apartment. She'd invited me over just to hang out. Nothing serious. I told myself I was just going to keep her company, that it was innocent. But of course it wasn't. We sat too close on the couch, our shoulders brushing. The movie we'd put on played in the background, forgotten. She looked at me. I looked at her. And then it happened. The kiss was electric. My heart pounded in my chest like I was a teenager again. For a moment, the world fell away, and there was only her lips, her breath, her warmth. I should have stopped it. I didn't. That night, when I finally stumbled back into my own house, my wife was asleep in our bed. I stood in the doorway, watching her breathe, and guilt washed over me in waves. I told myself it was just a mistake, just a one-time thing. But it wasn't. Building the double life. Once the line was crossed, everything changed. I bought a second SIM card, hidden in the glove compartment of my car, so Emily and I could text without fear of my wife finding out. I invented fake business trips, nights away in hotels where I was actually just a few miles from home, lying in bed with another woman. I learned how to delete call logs, how to hide receipts, how to cover my tracks with precision. It became a sick kind of game. Could I juggle both lives without dropping the ball? Could I keep the masks separate? During the day, I was the family man. School drop-offs, weekend soccer games, dinners at home. At night, or during stolen hours, I was someone else. A man desired, admired, alive with adrenaline. It was exhausting, but it was also addictive. The cost of keeping secrets. Here's what they don't tell you about living a double life. It eats at you. Even when things were going well, I felt a constant undercurrent of fear. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart skipped. Was it Emily? Was it my wife finding out? Every time I looked at my kids, I wondered if someday they'd look back at me with disgust when they learned the truth. But instead of stopping, I went deeper. I told myself I was in too far, that backing out would only make things worse. So I kept lying. I kept cheating. And the years piled up, where I was at the end of year one. By the end of the first year of my affair, I had mastered the art of deception. My wife trusted me completely. She thought the extra hours at work were me trying to earn a promotion for the family. She thought the trips were a sign of my dedication. She thanked me for working so hard. God, that still twists the knife when I think about it. Meanwhile, Emily and I had fallen into a rhythm. Dinners, nights at her place, weekends when I'd claim I was visiting a client out of town. She wanted more, of course. She started asking when I'd leave my wife, when we could be together without sneaking around. And I always dodged the question, because deep down I knew. I never intended to leave my wife. Emily was an escape, not a future. And that's where I'll leave part one. The stage set, the lies in motion, the trap fully sprung but not yet snapped shut. Part 2, the escalation. If year 1 was the beginning of the double life, then years 2 through 4 were the expansion. The years where my lies hardened into routines, where cheating wasn't a mistake or a slip, but a habit I had baked into my daily existence. And that's the thing about lying. The more you do it, the easier it gets. The easier it gets, the more you convince yourself you can keep doing it forever. I thought I was in control, but really I was already trapped. The second life becomes normal. By the start of year 2, I had settled into a rhythm that, looking back, disgusts me. Mondays through Fridays, I'd wake up at 6:30, eat breakfast with my wife and kids, kiss them goodbye like the loyal husband and father I was pretending to be, and head off to work. I'd text Emily from the parking lot, arrange lunch breaks, or plan late nights. By the time I came home, my wife would be tucking the kids into bed, exhausted from her own day, grateful to have me home, even though I wasn't really there. Weekends were trickier. Emily hated them. She despised the fact that she had to share me with my real family, that she became invisible once Friday night rolled around. And she let me know it. "Why don't you just leave her already?" she would ask again and again. And I'd respond with the same vague promises. "I need time. The kids are young. It's complicated." The truth? I never planned on leaving. Not really. My wife was stability. Emily was escape. I wanted both, and I was too much of a coward to choose. Gifts, secrets, and the drain on my finances. The affair wasn't just emotional, it was expensive. I bought Emily gifts. Jewelry, clothes, little, just because, surprises that made her smile. Dinners in nice restaurants, weekend getaways when I could fake a work conference, hotel rooms for stolen nights. I told myself it wasn't a big deal, that I was earning enough to cover it, that my wife would never notice a missing 100 here, 1,000 there. But money leaves traces. I started using cash withdrawals, work reimbursements, and sometimes even lying to my wife about unexpected expenses. Once, she asked why our savings account wasn't growing the way it should. I told her the stock market was unstable, that we had to ride it out. She believed me, and every time she believed me, I felt both relief and shame. The lies multiply. If you've never lied to someone you love, let me explain something. One lie is never enough. Lies breed more lies. You tell one, then another to cover the first, and before long you're spinning an entire universe of fabrications just to maintain the illusion. By year 3, I had a second phone line only Emily knew about, or a hidden drawer in my office desk with receipts and small gifts I couldn't risk bringing home. A fake Gmail account where we sent messages under ridiculous pseudonyms like teenagers. Entire fabricated business trips, complete with fake itineraries I showed my wife. I had built an elaborate house of cards, and with every passing month, the wind grew stronger. The pressure from Emily. Emily wasn't content to stay the other woman forever. She wanted progress. "I can't keep doing this, Mark," she told me one night, lying in bed beside me in a hotel room 2 towns over. "I need more than scraps. I need to know I'm not wasting my life on a man who'll never choose me." I kissed her, held her, told her I loved her. The words came out easily, even though they weren't entirely true. Because here's another ugly confession. I don't think I ever truly loved Emily. Not in the deep, committed way I loved my wife in the early years. What I felt for Emily was intensity, passion, adrenaline. It was selfish desire, not lasting devotion. But she didn't want to hear that. She wanted promises, and I gave them. Empty, vague, dangerous promises. The first close call. It was during year 3 that I almost got caught. One Saturday, while I was in the shower, my wife grabbed my phone to look up a recipe. Normally, I was careful. Messages with Emily were always on the second SIM card, and I never left that phone lying around. But that morning, I'd been careless. I had texted her from my main number about meeting up the following week. When I got out of the shower, my wife was sitting on the bed, phone in her hand, staring at the screen. "Who's Emily?" she asked. My heart stopped. I froze for half a second, then forced a laugh. "Oh, she's just a coworker. She needed help with a report." "Why?" She looked at me, her eyes narrowed just slightly, searching for something. After a long pause, she handed me the phone back. "Nothing, just wondering." I kissed her forehead, acted casual, and inside, I was trembling. That night, I texted Emily from the other phone. No more messages to my main line. Ever. I dodged a bullet. But instead of it being a wake-up call, I treated it like proof of my own cleverness. That was the sickness of it. I thought near discovery made me smarter, untouchable. Emotional distance at home. By year 4, the cracks in my marriage were showing. Not because my wife suspected, she didn't, but because I wasn't present. I missed school recitals because of work. I was distracted at family dinners, checking my phone under the table. I grew impatient, irritable, distant. My wife would ask if something was wrong, and I'd snap back with, "I'm just tired." "Okay?" She carried more of the household weight, more of the parenting duties, while I disappeared into my double life. And she still trusted me. She still believed in me. That's what haunts me the most. The fantasy versus reality. At the time, I convinced myself I was living the dream. 2 women, 2 lives, a thrilling secret only I controlled. But the truth? I was stretched thin, constantly lying, constantly anxious, constantly worried about getting caught. I drank more, slept less, lost track of who I had told what. Sometimes, I'd call my wife and accidentally almost say Emily's name. Once I actually did, but I laughed it off quickly, pretended I had been talking about someone from work. Each day was a balancing act, and I was wobbling more and more. The beginning of the end. Looking back, the beginning of the end wasn't the day my wife finally discovered the affair. It was earlier. It was the moment I realized that Emily was no longer content with half of me. She wanted everything. She started issuing ultimatums. "Leave her by the end of the year or I'm done." First I panicked. Then I begged. Then I promised. But deep down, I knew I was cornered. My double life wasn't sustainable anymore. And still I kept pushing forward. Lying to her, lying to my wife, lying to myself. Because I couldn't face the truth. No matter what happened, someone was going to get hurt. And in the end, that someone turned out to be everyone. Part 3: The Collapse. You can only juggle fire for so long before you get burned. And after 5 years of balancing my double life with the precision of a circus act, the flames finally consumed me. I'd like to say there was some dramatic, cinematic moment where everything came crashing down, but in reality it was quieter than that. Subtle, almost mundane. And maybe that's why it hurt so much. because my empire of lies collapsed not with a bang, but with the sound of a notification chime. The text that changed everything. It was a Tuesday night. I'd told my wife I was working late again, preparing for a big client meeting. In reality, I was at Emily's apartment, half asleep on her couch after another argument about when I was going to leave my wife. My phone buzzed. It was my main phone, the one my wife always had access to. Normally, Emily and I kept our communication strictly on the second line. But she was angry that night, emotional, tired of being second place. She sent a message to my main phone, not the secret one. I can't keep waiting forever. If you love me, prove it. Leave her. My wife saw the message before I did. The silence at home. When I walked into the house later that night, the air felt wrong. You know how you can step into a room and immediately sense tension? That's what it was like. The lights were on in the living room. My wife was sitting on the couch, her phone in her hand, her face pale. She looked up at me, and for the first time in our marriage, I saw something in her eyes I had never seen before. Coldness. "Who's Emily?" she asked. My mouth went dry. My throat tightened. The excuses I had rehearsed 100 times suddenly vanished. "She's just a coworker," I muttered, my voice weak even to my own ears. "Don't lie to me." Her voice cracked. "Don't you dare stand there and lie to me." I froze. My hands trembled. My brain screamed at me to say something, anything, but the words wouldn't come. And in that silence, my silence, she had her answer. The confrontation. The conversation that followed wasn't really a conversation at all. It was an unraveling. She asked questions, rapid fire like bullets. "How long? How could you? Did you bring her into our bed? Do the kids know?" And I confessed. Not everything at once. It came out in fragments, choked admissions between her sobs and my shame. 5 years. I had been lying to her for 5 years. The look on her face. God, I'll never forget it. It wasn't just anger. It wasn't just sadness. It was betrayal. Like I had reached inside her chest and ripped out her heart with my bare hands. At one point, she screamed so loud the kids woke up. They came downstairs in their pajamas, rubbing their eyes, confused, scared. "Why is Mommy crying?" my daughter asked. And my wife, still shaking, tears streaming down her face, looked at me and said, tell them what you've done." I wanted the floor to open up and swallow me whole. I wanted to disappear, but I couldn't. I had to look at my children, my innocent children, and admit that I had broken their mother's heart. I made a mistake. I stammered. "Daddy did something very bad." My son, only 10 at the time, frowned. "Did you hurt Mommy?" I couldn't answer. The silence said everything. The fallout. That night, I slept on the couch. Not that I really slept. My wife locked the bedroom door. I lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, listening to her muffled sobs through the wall. Every sound was a knife. The next morning, she didn't speak to me. She packed lunches for the kids in silence. She drove them to school herself, not even glancing at me as she walked out the door. When she returned, she had made a decision. "I want a divorce," she said flatly, her voice dead hollow. My chest caved in. Please, we can fix this. We can go to counseling, we can." No, her eyes burned. You cheated for 5 years, Mark. 5 years. That wasn't a mistake. That was a choice. Over and over and over again. You don't come back from that. And just like that, the life I had built was over. Emily's exit. For a brief, delusional moment, I thought Emily would at least be there for me. After all, wasn't this what she had wanted? For me to finally be free? But reality is cruel. When I told her my wife had discovered everything, her first reaction wasn't sympathy. It was panic. Oh my God, she knows? She's gonna tell people at work. Isn't she? My reputation, my job. I just lost my family. I snapped. And you're worried about your job? That was the moment I realized how naive I had been. Emily didn't want me. She wanted the version of me that existed in the shadows, in the stolen moments, in the thrill of secrecy. Out in the open, stripped of the forbidden glamour, I wasn't as appealing. A week later, she ended things. No dramatic farewell, no grand speech. Just a short message. I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry. After 5 years of wrecking my marriage for her, she discarded me in less than a paragraph. The legal and financial storm. The divorce process was brutal. My wife's lawyers tore me apart piece by piece. Bank statements, phone records, hotel receipts. All the evidence I had worked so hard to bury came flooding out in court. In the end, I lost nearly everything. 70% of my savings and assets went to her. The house was sold, proceeds split unevenly. She got the bigger share. Child custody? She got primary custody. I got weekends when she felt like it. I went from tucking my kids into bed every night to seeing them every other weekend, sometimes less if they didn't want to come. And believe me, they often didn't want to. The children's rejection. This is the part that still rips me open inside. My daughter, only 8 at the time, refused to speak to me for months. When I tried to hug her during visitation, she pulled away, hiding behind her mother. My son, older and more aware, was harsher. You ruined everything, he told me once, his voice shaking with rage. You made mommy cry every night. I hate you. Do you know what it feels like to hear your child say they hate you? It's worse than any punishment a court could hand down. It's worse than losing money, worse than losing a house. It's a wound that never heals. The empty apartment. And so I ended up here, alone, in a small, soulless apartment with bare walls and silence that echoes. No laughter of children. No warmth of a partner. Just me, my guilt, and the memories of everything I destroyed. Sometimes I sit in the dark, scrolling through old photos on my phone. Family vacations, birthday parties, Christmas mornings. Smiles that feel like they belong to another lifetime. And I realize I didn't just cheat on my wife. I cheated on my family. I cheated myself. I thought I was winning, getting the best of both worlds. But in the end, I lost everything. The cold truth. People think cheating is about sex. It's not. Not really. It's about selfishness, about cowardice, about filling holes in yourself with someone else's admiration instead of facing your own emptiness. For 5 years, I chose the easy path. I chose excitement over stability, lies over truth, lust over love. And now I pay for it every single day. My wife has moved on. She's stronger without me. My kids are healing, though I don't know if they'll ever truly forgive me. Emily? She's just a ghost, a shadow of bad decisions. And me? I sit here, typing this confession, hoping that maybe someone else out there will read it and think twice before making the same mistake. Because trust me, no thrill, no affair, no stolen kiss is worth the look in your child's eyes when they realize their hero is a fraud. Part 4: The Long Shadow. Years have passed since the night my wife discovered the truth. And yet, even now, I live inside the ruins of what I destroyed. If part 1 of my story was temptation, part 2 was indulgence, and part 3 was collapse, then this is the aftermath. The long shadow cast by my own mistakes. Because cheating doesn't just end with divorce papers. It doesn't just end with one explosive confrontation. No, the consequences echo through every day that follows, reshaping the rest of your life. The years after the divorce. In the first year after everything blew up, I told myself I'd rebuild. I convinced myself that I'd bounce back, that I'd find a new partner, that my kids would forgive me, that life would somehow settle into a new normal. But it didn't. My wife, my ex-wife now, moved forward with a strength I never expected. She threw herself into her career, into parenting, into creating a stable home for our children without me. People rallied around her. Friends, neighbors, family, they supported her, admired her resilience. Me? I became a cautionary tale. The guy who threw it all away. The husband who cheated for 5 years. The father who couldn't be trusted. I'd walk into the grocery store and feel eyes on me, whispers following me down the aisle. Some people avoided me entirely. Others confronted me outright. "You're a fool." One of my old neighbors spat at me once. "You had everything, and you blew it." He wasn't wrong. Dating again. Eventually, I tried dating. Not right away, but after the loneliness started to eat me alive, I dipped my toe into the online dating world. First, it was exciting. Swiping, chatting, meeting women who didn't know my history. But sooner or later, the truth came out. Either I admitted it, awkwardly, shamefully, or someone recognized me and warned them. And nothing kills attraction faster than, "Oh, you're the guy who cheated on his wife for 5 years." Even when I did manage a few short relationships, they never lasted. I carried too much baggage, too much guilt. I was emotionally unstable, constantly comparing them to my ex-wife, constantly haunted by what I'd lost. No woman wanted to sign up for that. The children's distance. But the hardest part, the part that still guts me, is my relationship with my kids. In the early years after the divorce, they were cold, distant. My son especially. He'd sit across from me at a diner during visitation, arms crossed, eyes down, refusing to speak. My daughter would cry when it was time to leave her mom's house to come see me. I tried everything. Trips to amusement parks, gifts, heartfelt apologies. But none of it mattered. "Stop trying to buy us," my son snapped once, shoving a new phone back into my hands. "You can't fix what you did." That moment broke something inside me. Time has softened things a little. They're teenagers now. We speak more. My daughter will text me sometimes, but it's surface level. "Can you send me money for books?" Or, "Can you drive me to practice?" The warmth, the closeness we once had, gone. And maybe it'll never come back. Loneliness. Loneliness is a strange thing. First, it's loud. You feel it in the empty rooms, in the silence where laughter used to be. You notice it in the empty chair at the dinner table, in the absence of goodnight hugs. But after a while, loneliness becomes quiet, like background noise. It's always there, humming underneath everything you do. Some nights I come home from work, drop my keys on the counter, and just stand there, staring at the emptiness. No one greets me. No one asks how my day was. I eat alone, sleep alone, wake up alone. And every time I look at the empty space beside me in bed, I remember who used to be there. I remember the warmth of her body, the way she'd curl into me in her sleep, the quiet comfort of knowing she was mine and I was hers. And then I remember how I traded it all for lust and adrenaline. Attempts at redemption. I've tried to make amends. I've gone to therapy. I've written letters to my ex-wife that I never sent, pouring out apologies she probably doesn't want to hear. I've volunteered at community centers, donated to charities, tried to balance the scales in some twisted way. But here's the truth. Some things can't be undone. Some wounds don't heal. My ex-wife has moved on. She's in a new relationship now. I hear he's kind, dependable, good to the kids. They like him. He goes to their games, helps them with homework, does all the things I used to do before I ruined it. And I'm glad for them. I really am. But it hurts in a way I can't describe. Because every time I see him with them, I realize he's living the life I threw away. Reflection on masculinity and validation. When I look back now, I see the real reason I cheated. It wasn't boredom. It wasn't lack of attention. It wasn't even about Emily. It was about me, my fragile ego, my desperate need for validation. I wanted to feel wanted. I wanted to feel young, exciting, desirable. And instead of facing that emptiness, instead of talking to my wife, instead of working through it like a man, I chased the easy fix. But the easy fix always comes with the hardest consequences. The moral of my story. If you're reading this, maybe you're where I was once. Maybe you're bored in your marriage. Maybe you're tempted by someone at work. Maybe you're telling yourself the same lies I told myself. It's harmless. It's just attention. It doesn't mean anything. I can handle it. Listen to me, you can't. The thrill fades, the excitement dies, and all you're left with is ashes. The people who love you will look at you differently forever. The home you built will crumble. And one day you'll be sitting alone in a cold, empty apartment, wishing you could go back and undo it all. But you can't. The final realization. I used to think I won, that I beat the system, that I got the best of both worlds. Love at home and passion on the side. But what I thought was victory was actually the greatest defeat of my life. Because in trying to have everything, I lost everything. And the saddest part? It wasn't worth it. Not for a second. Epilogue. If there's one lesson in my story, it's this. Don't confuse desire for fulfillment. Don't confuse attention for love. Don't confuse excitement for happiness. If you're tempted to cheat, if you're standing at that crossroads, thinking no one will ever know, remember me. Remember what I lost. Remember the children who won't look at their father the same way again. Remember the wife who trusted me, who loved me, who gave me everything, and whom I betrayed. Remember that victory can be defeat in disguise. And maybe, just maybe, you'll choose differently.